I don't know how many episodes it's going to take for me to be like, these are the dance moves, but I'm for dancing like nobody's watching still. Uh,
I was with Sachi this weekend at the
yeah.
book signing at the Hoot Owl,
Yes.
and we did a little refresher.
Mm.
So the book signing was pretty relaxed, and it was like people would come and go, and we'd have a circle. Like we didn't have an official presentation like we usually do because it was a
Yeah.
small place and people were coming in. But at the very end,
Mhm.
we packed all the books up. People had already bought their books; they were heading out the door, and Sachi put on music, and we all danced.
Mm.
And it was so fun, and
I
we
like
didn't
that.
dance long, but it
Yeah.
was so fun, and I was thinking in future book signings, we might start it with dance.
Mhm.
Like, here's where we it was
I like it.
it was
Yeah.
really awesome, and
The
it was really
unity.
cool. And
Yeah.
Joe was there, so he
Mm.
totally was into it. We had a blast. It was super fun.
Yes.
How are you?
I am grateful. How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm a little sleepy. It's
Yeah.
been a great day here in Atlanta. I got out and went walking this morning, and I was like, whew, that's great days. I
Mhm.
need a book and a nap.
Right. And around this time, I think about like the perfect temperature. I'm a band nerd, so it's football season. Like I've been enjoying hearing different teams. So I love the temperature and watching the leaves change colors.
Right. A lot more people interested in football right now because of the whole, Taylor
Uh,
Swift thing. They are
right.
like
I don't
all of a
even know
sudden.
about it. I saw her online, or I saw something about her seeing a therapist or something on social media. What happened?
Oh, she went to a Kansas City Chiefs game
Okay.
and is rumored to be dating their tight end, and I'm gonna totally forget his name.
Okay.
I've
That's
read
okay.
about it, but
Yeah.
everybody's like, and whether it's funny to me growing up as a football coach in Texas,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yes.
that's what's bringing the attention to the game. And it
Yeah.
was super cute on social media because all the guys on the sideline were looking up and going, "Well," like you could see their reactions, whether they were Swifties or not, right? It was so funny. But I think about that, like about women connected in wisdom. And when you
Yeah.
get like the influence she has had on
Mhm.
our world,
Mhm.
I saw something the other day, and I don't want to misquote the statistics, but it
Mhm.
was on voter registration day that
Okay.
she tweeted out to her folks to go vote. And the numbers jumped like
Mm.
exponentially about people registering to vote. So
Beautiful.
using our platform for good, using
Yeah.
that, I just, thinking about that when I think about occupational wellness and social good, right?
Mhm. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, an all-natural skincare company that helps you glow from head to toe. I am a champion for your daily self-care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness, and the co-founders of Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week with special expert guests to have weekly intentional conversations about how to be wise in business and relationships and wellness. How do we do it?
Oh, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I was on a call last night with a
Yeah.
group. I had done a women's empowerment group 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and we wrapped up this time last year. And we had made the commitment to each other that we would come back together a year and a day to check
Mhm.
in. And whoo, our check-ins, like the amount of stuff that everybody is holding right now,
Mhm.
especially women, right?
Mhm.
That are caregivers, it's a lot. It is a lot. There's been a lot of grief and loss. There's
Yeah.
been a lot of chaos. There's been like I'm like, and this is just one group and but it's kind of like a microcosm, right?
Yeah.
Different ages, different backgrounds, and to hear, and there were one or two that were doing great, like
Good.
soaring, and things are like,
Yeah. Yeah. Love
but
it.
even then you have grief and loss, and
Of
like
course.
what's going on with our planet and what's going on with our kids, and all the things. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible right now. So
Yeah. And I was thinking about I've been thinking a lot about volume 2, of course, as we work on it, right? And my chapter is talking about maximizing your capacity and the workflow. And at the end is rest. You guys know I talk about self-care and rest, right? And I almost coupled it with other things. I won't tell you guys what it is. You got to read the book, right? But I almost coupled it with something else. And that's what we do with occupational wellness. Sometimes we're like, and I'm going to rest in it. Does it happen? Right? Or it kind of halfway happens because we're halfway trying to do something else, and really spacing out that time to either reset, even if it's in the middle of everything. Wait a minute, let's pause real
Right.
quick. Or to make sure that I added at the end has been something that I've been working on recently.
I really felt lucky for, it was autumn equinox last Saturday here.
Yes.
And, in the United States, that means that we're going into fall. And autumn equinox is the day that the day and the night match, the daylight and the amount of dark. And so for me, I took it as a time to reset. I did some interplay that day. We had the book signing that day.
Yes.
And I really just committed to that resting, like to the really checking in with my body, getting up and going outside more, resetting. And when I can confess to all y'all, those of y'all that know me well know this already, but the minute I start to get like my energy back or my bucket starts to fill up, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got to do all these things, right? Which I think is true of so many women, right? Because we have so many things on our to-do list. It's like, and we have people that need us and people are calling. And, if they're under a certain age, they don't wait, right? And so, so I think about all that, and I've really been checking myself on this week because, there is a lot to do. And if we don't rest and take care of ourselves, even in our work, it can set us up for,
all
failure
types of
or
things.
health problems or all the things. So,
And the list goes on. Yes.
right. Should we talk about the definition and
Ooh,
get into this episode? Because I'm
let's do
really
it.
excited to talk to our guest today.
Me
So
too.
today, listeners, we are talking about occupational wellness. And occupational wellness represents living in the purpose, passion, and productivity in one's chosen profession. This includes work life, and we always say it in quotes, balance, as a fulfilling and productive professional life is fitting to weave together with a healthy personal life. Right?
Yes. So important. And that balance, I kind of laughed at it because we know it's a give and a take, right? We talked about Taylor Swift and the Swifties, and I think about people who go on tour, whether it's for concerts, whether it's for military, and the strain that puts and the things you have to put in place to be productive and effective, right? Or even like us, when you're in a certain part of the book, you have a little more room, and then at certain parts it's going to be a little more tight on the schedule, right? So how do you really pivot has been like one of the words of the year. How do you pivot in the situation to still get done what you need done?
We often talk, when we talk about balance, we often bring up Stacey Abrams and her book about Lead from the Outside. And when she talks about work-life Jenga, and I was giggling about that last night because in this meeting, one of the women said it felt like she'd been playing extreme Jenga. I was like, I think it sums up my year. Extreme.
Yes.
There hasn't been a lot of balance. There's a lot of wow.
It's extreme. Yes. Yes.
But I did feel lucky to kind of reset and be in community on Saturday and really just remember that it's okay. Especially this time of year. It's okay to take a deep breath and really take care of ourselves, right?
Yeah. And in the definition, how we talk about, where is it, purpose and passion, right? Even though we've, again, been playing extreme Jenga on different sides of working together this year, what I love is that I genuinely feel like I'm in purpose, right? Sharing stories like our expert that we're about to bring on in a second, and writing a second volume, being in collaboration with all these wonderful women with their resources that we have to help other people where they're hurting. It reminds me of little Shannon. And little Shannon did two things. One, she read a lot. Right. So for me to be a publisher, it sounds crazy. Like I never thought about it, but it makes sense. Right. And then she carried Band-Aids in her book bag. I think I talked about this on the podcast, so that if people got hurt at recess, they wouldn't have to go to the nurse. I had what they needed, and that's like Shaylo Glow now. So I love doing it. And I've been thinking a lot about Laurel Ann Stark. And she's, if you don't know, as our listeners, she's one of our Amazon bestselling authors for Volume One. And she's talking about her research and technology based app that she started to help entrepreneurial women with our mental health. Right. So if you don't know, if you haven't looked, our title for this episode is I Won't Let This Job Kill Me, right? And so whether it's working for somebody else, working for yourself, there's going to be things that pull on that wellness. And so being in purpose and passion has been the anchor for all of the pivoting that's gone on this year for me.
I think, and I've had a multitude
Yeah.
over the years, right? Like I've worked for people, I
Mhm.
have been my own boss, I've had a combo.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're mom, because when I had young kids, like I've done like I've been a stay-at-home mom, I've been a work full-time mom, I've been a work part-time, say all of them are hard, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I think about when we work for ourselves, I think as our own bosses, we tend to be harder on ourselves with at least with the to-do list, right?
Okay.
When I worked for somebody else, often I could check it off or be like, oh, that's too much. I'm going to leave it at work. I'll come back the next day. But I have found that for myself, and it's something I have to work on, like, and especially since the pandemic. And I know we talked about it a lot during the pandemic, but, now we live where we work. It's not even we work where we live. We live where we are, right? And so those boundaries and that separation and that, right, not getting up out of bed to go send an email that you forgot, like that part. So
It's so
yeah.
good. And I do make myself get up. And so we could talk about like different things that we separate.
Right.
And what you're talking about reminds me of our guest today because we started as RAs together. And actually, I wouldn't even say we started together because we were not in the same circle, right? But on Kennesaw's campus, when I was going there, when I was in college and I graduated in 2015, how do you say, again, it's a predominantly white institution, right? So you either know the Black people that you know, or you know who the Black person is and you know that you don't know them, right? And our guest, Mya, was one of those people for me. And so again, we were resident assistants. And so living on campus, having some of your residents in your dorm room, I had a building, right? Not just a floor. You have to work on that balance. Cause look, I got to go study. We can make time for the conversation, but working through all of those different things, I've been thinking about it for a while now. Yeah.
Well, let's hear her bio and get her
Let's
up
do
on
it.
this stage.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Okay, ladies, Dr. Mya Richradson-Echols serves in higher education administration and recently defended her dissertation, which examines departure experiences of Black women working in the student affairs profession. She is married with 3 beautiful children and enjoys eating her way around Atlanta. Help us welcome Dr. Echols to the stage. Richardson-Echols. Let me say the whole last name. Welcome, Dr. Mya. Yes, so excited to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. Well, Shannon, I was actually giggling in the hearing room about the who you know at Kennesaw. That is, I feel like that needs to be written somewhere. It's so true. At the PWI, you will know who the Black students are, even if you don't know them.
But I wonder, because I went to homecoming a few years ago. I said, wait a minute, where'd all these people come from? So I don't know if it's the same.
Exploded.
Yeah, they have.
I will say go Owls.
Yes, go Owls, right?
Go Owls.
It's been a beautiful thing to watch. Yeah. So when you hear the definition of occupational wellness, what comes up for you right now?
Yes. When I hear it, the first thought that I have, honestly, is prevent stress. I know that as women, specifically, like I was listening in when you were talking about work-life balance, right? Or work-life Jenga. And it is hard. There are so many expectations, whether it's from work or from home or just societal expectations, because you're in charge or everything. You juggle the schedules. Moms specifically,
right. Yes.
You have all the answers and tools. And so when I think of occupational wellness, it's just like, okay, that stress is gonna be there. What do we do about it? What do we do about it to make sure that, if this is a position that we're passionate for, or for me, students that I'm passionate for, what do I do to make sure that, my Jenga pieces aren't falling? Because it's inevitable. that the wind is blowing high, right?
Yes.
And that you're a priority within that.
So how do you do that for yourself right now?
So right now I try to figure out what in my week or within my day is giving me some sort of joy. And I try to pinpoint it, right? So it's almost like I have my own little secret going on, right? When I get in my car, let's say an example, I'm going to listen to, there's a song that I know, my bosses would be like, oh, she listens to that. Walk around the club,
Yeah.
You know the rest of it.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that if I left, a stressful meeting in which I was mansplained, the entire time, where I feel like the bottom line still wasn't resolved, and there's 2 extra meetings that are going to happen about that meeting where I gave my all, but it's just, still not, producing what it needs to produce. You know what? That's all right. I did what I needed to do. At the end of the day, my passion still lives here. The students know nothing about this meeting. And when I get in that car to go get some food, because you got to eat, walk around the club, might be playing for me. So, or my kids, like I can't wait to go home and bake cookies with my son because he wanted this specific brand of cookie. He didn't want this one. So I'm looking forward to, cackling with him when I get home during, an actual flood that is permeating one of the buildings that I'm at, right? So being really,
I love that reminder too, Dr. Mya, that it doesn't have to be big things, right? It can be a song. It can be, but to weave it throughout your whole day and your whole work day too.
Yes.
That we don't have to compartmentalize, or as Brené Brown says, forebode joy. Like we can have it in the moment.
Right. And I want to say as women too, it almost seems that we have to earn that joy. Like, okay, well, once I meet all of these deadlines, I can finally earn my weekend of rest or my episodes of Housewives, if that's what I don't watch that, but Housewives or, or, I can do these things. I can take a vacation because I finally feel, adequate in my tasks. And it's just a realization that may never come because something else is going to pile on you. And then the next thing is going to. So you have to have your own way of rewarding yourself for your ambitions, for, everything that you put forward in every second, because you might not see that.
Right. I have a very serious question before we move on.
Yeah.
But you said you don't watch Housewives. What is your reality TV guilty pleasure?
So do you all know The Circle on Netflix?
The Circle. What is it?
Okay, so The Circle is a bunch of random people in this apartment building. They can't see each other. All they can do is communicate with each other, like through social media on like their televisions throughout their apartment.
Okay.
And it's basically like a popularity contest. So you vote on each other for different ways. And some folks sabotage people. And then you have people who are real, people who are catfish. So it's a really interesting show. And Christine, I see how excited you are. It's in Atlanta they're filming in Atlanta right now.
No, I didn't know it. No, it is ridiculous. And because, my background is in social work. And so, between social work and sociology and like watching that, like the dynamics and how that works, like, I mean, I can be completely on the surface about it, but I can also be like, it gets deep sometimes. Like, it's like, whoa. And my guilty pleasure recently was Glow Up. The British makeup, like, because used to what I would do is watch things like that I wanted to accomplish or I wanted to learn how to do. And I realized, well, that's more stress. Like, we need something that is completely, I can honor that you are awesome at this. And I have no interest in doing that. Exactly. But I can honor your creativity. And I love shows where people are going for their dreams. Like I'm a sucker for any of them that like they're going for their dreams. What about you, Shannon? I know you've been hustling lately. So is there anything you've been watching?
Yes, and I do balance it. I hear you. And I think about intellectual wellness on that, right? Like, okay, I'm learning over here. I'm doing over here. I need this space where my mind is not actively trying to get better or do anything. So Glow Up is on my list. I saw that they dropped a new season. I'm going to watch it, right? What did we watch? Watching something. It's a cooking show. Ooh, and they're competing. I think it's like a 5-star chef, and they're competing for a restaurant to be the lead chef at a 5-star hotel. And so they're going through their different concepts,
Getting their
you know,
dreams.
yep. And that's a really good prize, you know, because I like to see in movies or reality shows what prize are they getting people to do all this stuff for, right? $10,000, 25, you know what I mean? But 5-star restaurant, okay, let me see what they're talking about, you know? Yeah.
Right? I love that. All
Mhm.
right. So thanks, y'all, for indulging me in that.
Of course.
I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Dr. Mya, tell us about your research.
Yes.
Because it's, we have so many things we could talk to you about, but this really, when you were telling us about your research, it was like, ooh, I think our listeners would be interested in this.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So I will say, one, I have to, give a shameless plug for my program too. So I graduated from the University of Georgia Student Affairs Leadership Program. And so when I started, I know, woo woo. When I started, it was before COVID. I will say that I started right before COVID. And so everything was a lot different than, any other individual who would be experiencing the program. And during the years, you're supposed to be trying to figure out what you're going to write about. And for me, since it's a student affairs leadership program, I was thinking, am I going to talk students? Like, am I going to talk staff? I knew whatever I was going to talk about, it was going to be Black oriented. I don't know how, but there's just not a lot of research specifically about Black women. And then I, looked even further and I was like, there's not a lot of research about Black female staff in this field that I'm working in. And so with COVID happening and doing a doctoral program, at the time I started the program, I was pregnant, on top of, being the interim director of housing. There were so many expectations coming at me to the point that my levels of stress, I could not find that joy. And so I think that experience, from that first year through the next couple of years, and kind of, creeping away from, I would say, the height of the pandemic, was I know that I'm not crazy when I see these expectations being thrown at me and that I can't find my joy and that it's harder for me to get my job done. And, a lot of it is identity based. This job that I could be completing, it might not be completed this easily because of, just the way that I'm presenting myself in the room, or, grabbing at the table that I'm being pushed away from. And so I said, I wonder if there's anyone else that's having this specific experience. While at the same time, when you do go home to rest, you're turning on the TV and seeing that Ahmaud Arbery was just shot and George Floyd was just shot. And, there's still these women that we're trying to get someone to acknowledge by asking to say her name. And so it was so specific and keen that I was like, I just wonder if I'm crazy. And so what I did is I wrote that up. My chair definitely agreed to us moving forward with it. And then when I sent my call for participants out, within 10 days, I had 117 women, Black women, who had worked in my field for at least 2 years that left the field within the 6, respond to say, hey, I'm interested in talking about my experience too.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, they had something to say, I bet.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the findings from the study, so qualitative study that I did, basically just to ask them, how did the pandemic and all of these, societal incidents affect your working experience while you were in student affairs? And then also, because all of those women, they left the field that I'm currently working in, can you tell me what some of the things were that contributed to your decision to actually leave? And so, with being from the outside looking in, I kind of knew what they were going to say. The confirmation broke my heart. the confirmation broke my heart because there are many talented ladies that who wanted to speak with me. I did come up with 8 that I went with. And, some of their responses is, I was exhausted. I was too exhausted to expend my energy to home and then other people's children, students, right? Even though that was my passion area, and, not feel appreciated for it. Not receiving the raise that, I know that I could be due, or not getting that promotion that I'm seeing someone else who's not as qualified, that doesn't look like me, is receiving, on top of microaggressions that I'm experiencing on a daily basis. And, the apathy from leadership when I am also mourning, the thousands of lives being lost, specifically in marginalized communities from COVID and COVID response and support from the pandemic. So it was eye-opening. It broke my heart, but their response to it actually was a little bit more fulfilling. That what I did was I chose myself, and I'm going to push back to any sort of experience of disrespect. I'm going to leave this. One, because I know that you can make a lot of money somewhere else, maybe, sitting behind a computer or not going into the workplace may give me a little bit more range to promote my own mental health in space, right? So that, that piece is missing of the social, the social impact of discrimination. So, yeah, it was heartbreaking, but them choosing themselves and choosing to push back to that type of experience and disrespect is something that was helpful to find. So.
Mm-hmm. We've often talked about it on the show, but it bears repeating until it changes. Black women earn 63 cents for every dollar earned by white men. Mm-hmm. That is from the Department of Labor, their latest statistics. And that can, and it doesn't, it's not about education. It's not about experience. It's not about any of that. And so I have a curiosity, Dr. Mya, about, you did your research in this one specific field, but when you were talking, like, I'm thinking about teachers, I'm just thinking about how it probably goes across almost all disciplines.
It absolutely does. So to even do, this research, I had to look into just the multiple works of other women, right? Just for like specific items. So I need to talk about workplace, so in my literature review, where can I find workplace literature? Because there isn't really student affairs, workplace, Black women departure literature in an abundance. So you have lawyers, right? That, my mom can call me Esquire. However, when I walk into the building, I'm being treated as, the intern, right? So, or teachers, there's already the expectation for them to do above and beyond. Shout out to teachers. I have 3 kids. But then what is that additional pressure, that you're facing that may be invisible to some of your peers of, yes, I'm doing this, I'm paying for these items, I'm, working hard to get these students through these different testing spaces, but then I'm also not invited to these conversations, or I don't have the opportunity for input when someone else may have the opportunity for that. So, yeah.
So important to go through the details. And like you said, and we see this with our authors, right? You go in, am I crazy? Am I the only one? And then everybody's like, no, 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 no. And sometimes and I hope this is true for the ladies that participated in your study, being able to share, like you said, the opportunity for input and saying, this is my story. Right. Hopefully that helps them with their wellness and their decision, and hopefully your research will give space for other ladies that come behind it and can help them implement it in the workspace, because we still need Black women in those spaces. And it's so interesting because I'm thinking about Black women's role in education in general, like the opportunity for research before now. Like, how is it 2023 and it's still hard to find things?
Yeah.
Well, we know how, but I still think
Right.
it's interesting that it's difficult that's, the situation.
Yeah. For to be accepted as scholarly,
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation. So the, I guess the burden of aptitude, however, on the flip side, the overworking or the respect, I guess, that you get to, continue to make someone else look good, but I also don't trust you to sit here at the table to make decisions, is a lot of what we pull out from this and what that experience looks like.
And I know that we talk about self-care on the podcast. I don't know how many conversations you have about self-care with the ladies and in these different rooms, right? But for somebody who is in higher education and is dealing with those things, what advice would you give her to carve out space while not trying, what is the word? When you're trying to say that the system is okay without saying this is okay, how do you, I don't know how to say it clearly, but what advice would you give to her?
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shaylo Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shaylo Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups, really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
yay. Tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
I say that, you make sense. So, one of the implications actually of the research was we know that this isn't going to end, right?
Right.
I looked up a story, one of the first tellings of a woman in student affairs administration, Lucy Diggs Slow at Howard University, who she experienced gendered racism. From then all the way into 2023, when I just had, issue in a meeting 30 minutes ago, it's not going to end. And it doesn't matter, necessarily, like you said, what field that you're in or what your occupation is. And so what do you do? Right. So you can find something that's more comfortable. Like some of our folks, they said, I'm just going to leave this field and I'd rather be, working from home. Like, I'd rather take that physical space at least and let that be mine. Because I know that at least if that is happening to me, it's not happening, in my presence to affect my physical aura. Or whether it's them also at work finding their own sister circle to join into.
Right.
So I know that I feel crazy until I go to lunch and I talk to these other sisters that I have that I know have this experience. It's almost like a pseudo therapy session to know I'm not the only one that's going, through this at this time.
Right. Yep. I
Yeah.
love that. And that's what I tell people too. We've talked about it. Get your circle. Mine at Papado was guys and girls. It's just do our mindsets align, right? When I talk to you, can we really meet and you really give me strategy that's going to help me through the situation? And what was the first thing you said? You said the sister circle, and what was number one?
The first thing
Leave.
To leave
just
into space. And I've been doing that too, right? I don't know how many of the shows you've listened to, but I went from starting Shayla Glow on unemployment in 2020, right, to Top Golf, back to Papado for a second so I could step into the businesses. And this is where I've been. And some conversations with people, either they're like, oh, wow. And them seeing my self-care has helped them create verbiage for themselves, boundaries for themselves, right? And see what's going on. Some people are like, well, you just keep quitting. And I'm like, it's not a quit. It is not a quit. If this is what I need and people are possibly getting attacked, different dangerous situations are not being addressed, this is what I have to address so that I'm okay, so that my family's okay. And the whole Jenga tower that we're talking about doesn't topple over. I can't sacrifice this for a group of people who won't even entertain a conversation when I'm trying to give feedback.
But it's an anomaly for you to choose you outside of a hard situation. The expectation is that, you're Superwoman. You are definitely fighting through all of those hard things, the disrespectful things, the dangerous things, and that you're going to triumph through that.
Right.
The expectation. And so when anyone, sees you, even if they love you, choose something different, I'm not familiar with, women saying no to a situation or them choosing themselves and prioritizing themselves. That's an anomaly.
Yes.
One
And
of our goals. Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
And give you a shout out, give Christine a shout out, and a shout out to Sarita. I don't know if you know this, Dr. Maya, but Shayla Glow is in a retail space in Atlanta, and there's 3 brands there. Yes. 3 brands there. And so one of the other brand owners, Sarita, supported me in this event, right? So recently, within the last 4 weeks, I have not gone to a Shayla Glow event, and that never happens. I was outside like, I need to go home. I'm not going to show up my best, right? And like Christine was talking about, if you ladies heard it, it was like I wasn't there, and usually I am, right? But it is because I wasn't. And so I've been able to tap into my partnership power, and shout out to you ladies. Thank you so much for Christine, for supporting me. And hey, I need to pivot, because if I show up, I want to show up bright, organized, effective. If that's not where I am right now, let me pause and pull back so that when we get there, we'll be okay and I can take care of everything I need to take care of. So partnership power has been huge this past month.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you were talking, Dr. Maya, when you were saying that it's rare for people to choose, like our society sets us up not to, right? I've often gotten, I wish I could make my own schedule. And it's like, you can't. Like this, I always love it because, folks are like, it's just like, and entrepreneurs or people, like everybody has their own things, right? Whether you work for somebody, what your system, we're all working in different systems in different ways, but that we can choose ourselves. Like it's not always easy. I mean, Shannon and I have conversations, like we have to negotiate sometimes on hours and what we're doing. And sometimes I have to, she has to take something for me or I have to take something for her. But the thing is being grounded in wellness, being grounded in that you're enough and that it's okay to ask for what you need. Because we're taught very early on as women, and I know from my friends, and especially as Black women, like that you're not allowed to say what you truly need, right? And so I think us shifting that together through these conversations and saying it's okay, right?
Yeah. And that's what else I've been telling people is to give the feedback,
right?
Mhm.
And what I found verbiage that needs to be on my list is I don't feel like I can give honest feedback, because
Mhm.
sometimes you might not even be able to get there, but I have to say that too, so that when I step away, it can be neutral, it could be professional, but I tried to have the conversation. This is what
Mhm.
happened. This is what I see that lines up with your system, because we're going to tie it back to the policies and procedures. This is not personal, but
Mhm.
this is happening. And then when you're talking about leaving, that exit plan is important. And a lot of
Mhm.
people struggle with that, whether it's, even if it's not for negative reasons, maybe it's for great reasons. Maybe you want to, like Christine was talking about, all the different professional positions you've been in, right? Maybe it is to be a stay-at-home mom and you're leaving, but how do you do that and tie up the conversations that you need to have and make it so that you say everything that needs to be said from your part that only you can give a voice to?
That is so true. I love it, Christine, when you said, when people are saying, as an entrepreneur, you get to make your own schedule. Well, you can too. Um, I think that the motivation for that, of course, being self, but also like we know that from whether it's year to year or generation to generation, there can be a different response to, I guess, societal expectations of how women work. Or how we treat ourselves, or if we even focus on wellness in the workspace. So for me, it's someone who may be 6-7 years younger than me that I might supervise, or the students that I'm talking to. I'm doing it for myself, but I also want to model to you that you don't have to accept inhumanity, right? You can choose yourself. You can, choose just your 40 hours and that's it. um, and also just for my daughter, I want her to see when I'm on the phone, actually, it's 5 o'clock. I'm going to have to hang up because I have to tend to her, or I'm actually out of the office right now. And I meant that. And so whatever is occurring, it's not an emergency for me right now. My family and myself, that's the emergency in this moment. And so being able to just model that, I know for me, it's not something that I saw. It just was I was able to know that, hey, I'm actually really good at what I do, even though it's not always acknowledged. I bet it's known. And so if I don't, if I'm not showing up in the way to, I guess, make folks look good, because I feel like that's any space that I've gotten into, that's kind of the bottom line. That's kind of the job description. Just make this look good, right? If I'm not showing up, or if I'm already creeping out the door, I know that you're going to respond to that. And so this is the ways that I'm going to be able to be well in this space to make you look good.
That makes sense, to keep the boundaries. It reminds me of when you were talking about the call, it reminds me of one time a parent called me. I think it was over the summer or something, and your student is no longer my resident. It is summertime.
Yes.
You're not supposed to be talking anyways,
I'm
so.
sorry to that man.
And I had to, these are your next steps, but just definitely needed the space and the boundaries. I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So, Dr. Mya, for somebody that is in the job and leaving's not an option, right?
Yes.
What do you recommend, or did anything come out of your research, like of coping skills or things that work well in the moment when, you're facing microaggressions, or when you're being disrespected? Or was there anything that came up from your conversations that might help or be a resource to our listeners?
Yeah, I would say another thing that's an anomaly is the response to disrespect or microaggressions, or so I don't know about you, but I know if I were to ask me from 10 years ago, if someone walked in and they were to say something disrespectful to either, about women, or about Black women, or about Black people in general, I might not have said anything, right? If they laughed, I might have giggled myself, and just, well, that was uncomfortable, because I don't want to address it, because I'm fearful of what response that I might receive, as the person who's seemingly on the lowest on the totem pole, not per ability, but at least just per identity, and per what's stereotypical response that I might receive, or perception from whoever. And so I would say one thing that I want to enable people to do leaving may not be an option. And that is what a lot of the participants expressed, because, I'm the breadwinner, or I am state bound, I'm regional bound. So leaving is a little bit harder for me with, a family. But you have a couple of things on your side. You have policy on your side. You have documentation on your side. And so although it's uncomfortable, advocate for you. If it needs to be written, write it. If you're made uncomfortable, make someone else uncomfortable. Is that something you're okay with saying to me at this moment? And I know that that's not easy for everyone, but advocating for you also means advocating for, let's say, your favorite coworker, or one of your students, or, whoever your clients may be, a younger client that's coming in. But in the moment, knowing that those things are on your side, and knowing that, you do have a voice. And again, your worth is definitely known. It may not be acknowledged. And so when you respond, the response you may be getting back is, this is a person that I know is good at these things. Let me not mess that up by being an a-hole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that advice. One of the things I was reading lately is another strategy, in addition to the question you asked, was just asking more questions. Like, why do you, I'm curious why you find that funny.
Yeah.
Or why you, like, just ask questions. And, because if we don't laugh at things that aren't funny, right? And if we say, that's not funny to me, as allies or as women, I liked how you said that, Dr. Maya, like, we can advocate for our favorite coworker if it's uncomfortable to advocate for ourselves, right? That's always kind of been, now as I've gotten older, I'll say whatever. But, when I was younger, I would definitely stand up for anybody else before I would stand up for myself, right?
Yeah.
But now I've reached a certain age. It's like, don't even play. Like, we're addressing this right now.
That's important.
And it's hard because you're right. Sometimes if you don't have the words or the training, or there's power differentials, which often are with women in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
And if you really need the job because we're feeding our families, and it can be unsafe sometimes.
Right.
So,
Right.
And what I was thinking about when you asked that question to Christine was heart math, and taking a second to just pause. And Dr. Maya, what it is grounding something in your heart, right? So I usually do two things. I like gratitude, because there's so much to be grateful for every day, right? And then something else. I try to have the something else be actually relevant to that day, so it's not just lightly doing it, right? But in situations in the restaurant and different things, that helped a lot. Or just taking a deep breath, right? If I was pulling food and a lot is going on, I just take a step to the side, and take a deep breath, right? You might not be able to do that in a meeting. I get that. But in the workplace, throughout the workday, those are two things that help me stay centered, so that when I did give the feedback, or when I want to go write that feedback, that on September 27th at 5:46, this was said, so that I can just document it. It's not,
Dr. Maya was awesome.
right? That teacher was awesome, right? It's not personal. It's not anything. It's it's as it needs to be said, so that everything can be clear and followed up with effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have to just own right now, y'all, as we're talking, there is a little piece of me. I think it's an inner rebellious teenager that likes to say, why should we have to be the ones that write it down? I've been in those situations in work before where I've had to, but I just have to acknowledge her. She's coming up, and like, just comfort her and say, it's okay, baby girl. Like, because that's who we are as women. We take care of stuff, and we affect change when we do things like that.
And
sometimes oh, go ahead.
No, excuse me for interrupting. Go finish.
I was just going to say, it just sometimes doesn't feel fair, right? And we know it's not, right? I was raised by a dad that said, if you want fair, go in October.
And sometimes that's how it is as trailblazers, right? Like Dr. Maya was saying, from the first woman at Howard up until now, we're still dealing with it. And so if you're the first person to start voicing stuff, even if the team might be brand new, you might be the first person. I think that you feeling like that shows that you're paying attention. because
Mhm.
it's a lot to be this great asset and come to work with a great attitude, dealing with all this stuff, and also have to do the extra to make sure that the back end is followed up later on.
Mhm.
I think it's reasonable to be a little frustrated with it and be honest, like that's more on my plate and I'm trying to take a lot off already.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is true. I would say it's an honest feeling. We do a lot of work on ourselves. Let's say just the mental labor, let's say Shannon, to get you to the point of I'm going to breathe and I'm going to do this. Like you've learned, in your years, that's work right there. That's
Yes.
an accomplishment right there. And so to bring that whole person that's done so much work on, me and how I deal with things, and has done that mental work for, my 33 years, let's say. And I come into a space and I am, being disrespected, like thinking of yourself as this wonderful asset and saying, oh no, you disrespected Shannon. Let me go ahead and,
Right. Right.
document this situation
Yeah.
because I am important. But if you
Mhm.
can't get there, because I know that there are some of us who might not be there yet with ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And like I said, if it is for a coworker or if it is for your daughter, for me, Malay, my 3-year-old,
Mhm.
I'm going to address this situation because I'll be damned if my
Right.
Malay, when she's in this type of space, is going to be talked to in this way. Um,
Mm.
then maybe root yourself in, what you're passionate about or what you love most. If you haven't necessarily found it or worked through the stereotypes of being superwoman or being as forgiving as society kind of holds on us.
Mhm. I love that. I was thinking, I can't remember where the original quote comes from, but you know that do it even if your voice shakes.
Yeah.
And I think about that because Dr. Maya, I have raised 2 strong human beings, and they're 25 and 21 now. And back when they were little, like, I mean, some of this stuff we were just starting, right? About speaking up for women's rights. I mean, it'd been going on for a while, but still, different. I was in Texas at that time. And so there was a lot of, and I would speak up even if my voice shook. And now that I've raised these humans that are like, they don't have a problem saying anything at all. Like, I mean, they take on systems. I'm like, whoa, right? And call and tell me about it afterwards. And I'm like, you go, girl. Right.
Yes.
So I love that you're doing that for your daughter. And thank you, because you're doing it for girls and women everywhere and people who identify as women. Like every time we stand up and advocate for each other, it makes a difference, not just here, but around the world, you
Mhm.
know?
It
Mm.
really does.
Yeah, it does.
Mm.
So, yes, every week, Maya, we do a wisdom in action,
Yeah.
and it's an action step towards that dimension of wellness. So, this week, what are you doing for your occupational wellness?
So I'm going to be very transparent, right? So I remember at the beginning of this, our conversation, you were asking me about like, how do I step into my wellness? And what I was going to say was, I'm a work in progress. We're always works in progress.
Yes.
And to answer this question, last Friday was the answer to the question is intentionality and consistency, even if you mess up. So last Friday, I was at work and I was having a hypertensive episode at
Mhm.
work. And I know it was stress. And so I had to step back because I was like, how did I get to this point? Oh yeah. Like I, was worried about this thing, this thing, this thing. And I forgot myself in the way that I, usually remember myself. So knowing that, yes, you're going to mess up because you're going to go back to, I can do it all. But taking a step every single moment of how am I taking care? Like, did I sip water today or is it
Mhm.
just sitting on my desk? Right. Or did I go out into my car and listen to that song? Or how did I respond to this stressful meeting? Like centering me and being consistent with me and knowing that it's going to be tough, I think is my way of dealing with it. So,
Love it.
yeah.
Love it. What about you, Christine? What are you working on this week for your occupational wellness?
I'm sitting over here thinking about it because our listeners know I was out for a couple of weeks for a family emergency.
Yes.
And, when you come back after something like that, like there's a to-do list that's whew,
Mhm.
even longer. So I want to be in balance with that. I'm getting back. I'm really this week for the first time in probably 6 weeks being very consistent with my self-care because travel and emergencies and things like that. So
Yeah.
my occupational wellness actually this week is to do my practices, like do my things that work, like the dancing. Like when you say that, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm not playing enough music, right? Because I'm
Yes.
kind of getting into the drudgery of, oh, this has got to be done, checklist. I'm like, well, I got to dance more. So let's just shorten it to that. Dance more is
Oh, I
my
like it.
occupational wellness this week.
Yes. And that's been on my list in general the year, like dancing, a little dance break on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Mya, I tell this story about when I was in middle school. I realized I was starting to get depressed. And I said, I feel like I'm kind of young to be depressed, but there was a lot going on, right? So I
Mhm.
said, instead, I'm going to laugh once a day. And now I laugh a lot. Sometimes you can't stop me from laughing, but I felt like I needed something else. And so, little dance breaks when I hear a good song is what I'm doing.
Yes.
But for my occupational wellness, I like what you said earlier. I wrote it down, Dr. Mya, hashtag prevent stress. So,
Mm.
yeah. So, how I do that is looking out. Fourth quarter is coming, right? It is almost here. So, just being proactive with the planning, the communication, and not with the expectation that this is exactly what's going to happen and it has to be that way, right? But just having the plan and knowing what I'm looking at and what I'm working towards helps me prevent stress. So, preventing it so we can be organized.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I have so loved our conversation today.
Yeah. This was a great conversation. I was going to comment. I did see y'all's dance break at the beginning, and I was like, oh, I wanted to join in.
And you can always dance in the green room. I always scroll it
I
down.
was.
I
Mhm.
saw you, and I saw you laughing too. Okay, and I always scroll it down so I can see the guests, so you are always included, even if you're not on stage.
Yes.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
of course,
So
of
fun.
course. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to join us. I saw you talking about your research and saw the new baby and everything that you were holding and how well you were doing that. So thank you for sharing everything that you've been working on with our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for having me on here. And for anyone who's listening, put you first. You
Yes.
deserve it.
Mm,
Done a lot
Yes.
of work on yourself.
good
Thank you so
stuff.
much. Talk to you soon, Maya.
Oh, yum. What a good, juicy conversation.
Yes. And with the books, with the podcast, I think about the impact that it's going to have now. And I know, and not just Black women, I know so many women feel that way at work. So hopefully you ladies can take some pieces from what Dr. Maya said, what works for me and Christine, and increase that occupational wellness because we have to work somewhere right now, right? Per capitalism, like you were talking about on Instagram, right, Christine? Like
Right?
we have to do something. So yes.
Right? Till we get that winning lottery ticket if you play, right?
I try not to even think about it because the odds of it happening, like, it's just gonna add stress. I'm trying to prevent stress.
Right? Okay, back that up.
Hey, whatever floats your boat. If that's what helps you, I'm for it. I hear you.
Well, here in Georgia, it contributes to our Hope Scholarship for our college kids. So
Yes.
occasionally I will grab one and just say, oh, heading to my kids' education.
Yes. And I did have
In
Hope
the off
Scholarship.
chance, right?
So thank you so much for everybody who plays. Yes, I'll take it.
Oh, it's so fun. Hey, what do our listeners need to know before we jump off of here?
There's so much that we're working on. So again, as always, if you want to stay updated, connect to us on social media. We have Volume 2 coming out next month. We have audiobooks coming out. We talked about the conference and have some updates. So there's things that are moving and that we're waiting for the date for. But if you're looking forward to some more dimensional stories, more from all of the authors and speakers that you know and love, make sure to follow us so you can stay connected and stay in tune.
I love it.
Yes.
Love it.
Oh, and this weekend we are having the Sweet Auburn Fest on Auburn Avenue. So if you were in Atlanta, if you're one of the 20,000 people that we're expecting, come say hi at the retail space under the John Lewis mural at 228 Auburn Avenue. We'll be there with London's Closet and Zanaya Naturals and Shaylo Glow having a good time.
Oh, that's going to be super fun, y'all.
Yeah,
I'm going to
I'm
be
really
doing
looking
a
forward to
Secrets
it.
of Interplay
Mhm.
in Atlanta this weekend with a really cool group of folks. So I
Fun.
don't know if I'll get to sneak over and see you, but if I
Okay.
do, if I
Let me know.
don't, have fun. And
Thank
if I
you.
do, you'll see
Yeah.
me. So
Okay. I look forward to it. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for listening in to episode 131, Women Connected in Wisdom. We'll see you live at 5 next week. In the meantime, don't forget,
be well
be wise and
and
be
be
whole.
whole.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.